Hello everybody, welcome to another Forbidden 3D Prints video. Today we're going to work on a PS1. The motherboard model is the PU-18. If you want to work on a PU-8, you can follow my other tutorial that is on my channel. This is for the XStation installation of the PU-18. So we're going to start with this chip. There's a few pins that need to be lifted and isolated. It's not a hard job, but it requires some precision. I'll go ahead and show you my approach on how I lift the pins. So the way I approach this is I use this small tip on my soldering iron, and I use these tweezers, and basically I just raise a little bit. I don't use a lot of force, but I try to raise a little bit the pin that I want to lift, and then I just apply the soldering iron a little bit, and it lifts very easily. The first one we're going to do is the actual number 80, pin number 80. Usually I do this with my microscope, but now I'm trying to use my camera as point of reference, which is going to be a little bit harder, but I think it will do the trick. Here we go. You don't need much force, and the pin raises straight away. Make sure the pin is well above the motherboard. It's not touching any of the other pins as well. So for the other pins, what I do is just I stick my tweezers in between the pins, and I use them as a lever to lift the pin that I want. If you don't have, if your tweezers are not as sharp as mine, just use a needle or something sharp that can make this effect. So you put it in between the pins, and then you raise it using the pin before as a lever. Of course, you can't apply much pressure. This doesn't need almost any pressure at all. As soon as you hit the soldering iron on the pad, the pin lifts straight away. So in this case, we've done with the first. So next one is the third. So 1, 2, 3. This is the one. So I'm using the fourth pin as a lever. Now I'm gonna hit the pad with my soldering iron, and it's gonna lift straight away. There we go. Straight away you feel it lifting. So I'll go ahead and lift the 3 pins left for this row. So after lifting all 5 pins on this row, I'll start lifting the remaining 3 that are from this row, which is the 4th, 5th and 6th from the left. So you count 1, 2, 3, and that's the 4th, the 5th and the 6th pins. If you need to know the exact pins that you need to lift, just refer to the manual that I will link in the description. So after I lifted the pins, I'll double check that I didn't lift any of the pins that I didn't need to be lifted, or I desolder any of the other pins. So basically I just check if the pins close to the ones I was working on, they move. If they don't move, everything should be fine. I also like to do a continuity test to see if any of the pins are touching the neighbors. If it beeps, it's because they are touching. If it doesn't, everything is good. It's always good to check if your probes are actually working. So after confirming that all the pins are lifted and none is touching each other, I just like to go ahead and put a little bit of tape just to make sure that even if some of the pins get knocked around, they won't gonna be touching any of the pads. This also gives you a good contrast so you can see exactly which pins you lifted and that they are not touching each other. Let's do the same for the other side. Okay, now that we lifted the pins and put the tape on, we are done with this side of the board, so we can now pass on to the other side. And the area that we'll be working is this one. And this is where we're going to be installing the QSB board, which should look like this. And it's going to be installed something like this. Before we install the board, we have to prepare two pads. The first one is this pad here. We're gonna scrape a little bit, just expose the copper. And the other pad is this one here. The way I do it, I just use my X-Acto knife and I just slowly scrape the top layer away just to expose the copper. This is something it needs to be done very gently, slowly. If you do it too much, you might end up breaking the trace, which in any case, it's always good to double check after you expose the copper that check where the trace is going to and just check for continuity. As soon as you start seeing the copper a little bit more brighter, it should be good. If you can notice, there's already a difference between this pad and these ones. This is much brighter, so just scrape a little bit more, just make sure, and then pass on to the other one. So now to check for continuity, that we didn't destroy the trace. This one I know from experience that is this pad, and this pad I know it's going to somewhere around here. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. Let's see if I can put it on camera. It's this pad here. So that's all good. Now let's go ahead and clean the pads with isopropyl alcohol and a cotton bud. Let's apply a little bit of flux. And put some solder. On One side is done. And the other side is also done. Okay, now to position the board. This is a little bit tricky. You just have to see if you're more or less on all the pads, that all the pads are visible from the top. What I like to do is just put a little bit of tape just to hold for the first few pads that I solder, and then after that I'll be good. Okay, very important is that you can see the pad that you scraped here. You can see the other one there. This one, it's also important. So when they are more or less aligned, we prepare the soldering iron with solder. I like to start with this one, and on this side with this one or this one. You can choose, because these are the ones that give you a little bit more play afterwards. So you can still move a little bit to make it in the correct position. So let's just apply a little bit of flux here. Prepare the soldering iron with the solder already on the tip. And then go ahead and put it in place. As you can see, it's all good. You can still see that point there. All the other points are in place. These ones, all good there, all good there. Here could be worse, but we still have a little bit of flexibility with the board. So for example, this pad is not 100% in place, but if we just move a little bit the board, it gets just on the right spot. So we'll do the same thing. We'll put a little bit of solder here. Prepare the soldering iron with some solder, and this end tends to lift, so make sure it's all the way down and apply some solder. There we go. And that's it, it's done. All the other points will be exactly in place now. So it's just a matter of going ahead and solder the rest of the points. Make sure you press down on these points. what I like to do is just clean the excess first and then go with the isopropyl alcohol and finish cleaning the rest, because I've just noticed that if I go straight away with the cotton bud and the alcohol, I just do a big mess. So I just prefer to remove the excess of the flux and then carry on. Okay, we can now inspect all the points. If nothing is bridging, if the points are all making contact with the board, it seems that all our points are doing a good contact with the board. So what really bothers me are these 5 points. So this one, this, and this, because we can't really see if they're making a good contact with the pads. So what I went ahead is identified where these points were going to, so I could check for continuity. So this point, I know it goes to one of the pins on this chip, so let's check. There we go. So we know that this pad is making a good contact. This one, I know it goes here, so it's making a good contact. To test this one, you'll have to go on the other side of the board, because this one is connected to, I believe, is one of these pins. So let's see. There we go. So this is how you check that one. This one, I believe it's this one, this one. Okay, now we're going to pass on to this side of the board, where we're going to remove this resistor here and connect a wire from this point to this point here. So the way I go to remove this resistor is that I apply a little bit of solder to the tip of the soldering iron, and just to help with the heat transfer. And since the resistor is so small, both sides of the resistor are gonna, the solder on both sides of the resistor are gonna melt, and the resistor is gonna just come off. It's pretty simple. This is not really gonna be needed, but I'll just apply a little bit of solder and just clean the rest of the solder that remains there. Just looks a little bit more neat. Now I'm gonna prepare a little bit of wire. Prepare the pad. Just put a little bit more solder just to make it easier for the wire to attach. Prepare this pad as well. Sorry, it wasn't on camera. This pad. And connect the other end to the pad that we prepared. And we're done. So after everything, this is how it should look. All the pads are in place, everything is connected. We checked the internal soldering points with the correct places in the board. check for continuity. Yeah, everything seems to be soldered correctly. Here as well, resistor came off, and we're good to proceed. So now the next step we're going to do is cut flush this plastic bit here, so it doesn't bite on the ribbon cable. So you just use some flat cutters like this. At least this is the best tool to do it. But the idea is that you cut flush with the shell. Just make sure it's flat. Put your hand on top and there you go. I just felt it hitting my hand, so it was a good thing I was protecting. Yeah, and this is enough. It's flat, it's not going to bite on the ribbon cable, and we're good to go. So after putting back the metal shell, we're going to start installing the ribbon cable. So it goes with the blue side up. Just make sure this is, because sometimes it comes like this, so make sure it's all the way out. Insert the ribbon cable like so, and push it back in. Now we flip the board and put it in place like so. This is also a good time to double check if these pins didn't move, they are not touching each other, and everything is how it's supposed to be. And from what I can see, we're good to go here as well. Now while we put the top piece back, we'll have to pass the ribbon cable through this slot here and make sure we don't put any pressure on the ribbon cable, and that's it. So we can start prepare the XStation board by putting these pins that come with it on the right places. So one goes here, the other one goes here, and the third one goes here. And we put the XStation like so. So what we have to do now is put the ribbon cable in place, and for that we'll have to bend the ribbon cable in certain places. So what I like to do is just put the ribbon cable the way it is supposed to go. So this is the way the ribbon cable is supposed to go. Just put it there. And now we're gonna see more or less what needs to be done in order for the cable to be in place. So you see more or less what kind of bends the cable needs to do. So here it needs to go like this, then it goes the other way, and like this. So you know more or less what needs to be done. After that, you just take this off and you bend the cable the way naturally it was trying to go. So the first bend is this one, so we can go ahead and slightly bend it. Let's see if everything is still. The second bend was something like this, so we just want to make sure that this part is aligned with this. So let's see, it's more like this, looks okay. There you go. And we bend it. And the next stage is it going this way. So just a small bend like this, and it should be fine. So it wasn't perfect, so this bend should have been a little bit more towards the top, like this, but you'll be alright. It's not putting any strain on the ribbon cable, so it should be fine. So I went ahead and prepared an SD card with all the files needed for the XStation to load. So what is left to do is turn on the PlayStation and see if everything is working. Firstly, we need to press on this switch because we need to tell the PlayStation that the lid is closed. Otherwise, the XStation won't load. So what I do is I use this bit of plastic that we cut from the PlayStation shell. I just use it to press that and hold it with a bit of tape. So this is done. So just turn on the PlayStation. Let's see what happens. There you go. As soon as the PlayStation logo comes on, everything is working. So let's see. We have Street Fighter Alpha. Let's fast load it. And it's working. Let's just go to the main menu. There you go. Okay guys, so everything is working. Just need to put the PlayStation back together and just play a little bit just to see if nothing goes wrong, everything keeps on working for a while. Just half an hour usually I'll play for, and just to test everything, that everything is right. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions or suggestions, just leave down there in the comments. If you need the tutorial for the P8 motherboard, check on my other videos. And that's it. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.